KSR's Jack Pilgrim here with Zack Geoghegan to break down another victory for Kentucky over the Louisville Cardinals. It was the return of Kenny Payne. We got to see Zan Payne play. I know that's not the storyline, but I thoroughly enjoyed seeing the cheers on there, and it was the Jacob Toppin show. Finally, he emerges out of a dark place. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, but a much-needed victory, Zach, after whatever the hell that was out in Columbia, Missouri.
Yeah, a real feel-good win from Kentucky today. We had a lot of just good vibes in the building. The crowd was actually pretty good, all circumstances considered, with the football game going on at the same time. Crowd was really into it. Jacob played really well. Oscar had another quiet 24-13.
And 14.
24 and 14. I sold him short. But yeah, big game from Jacob Toppin, as Jack alluded to. He's kind of not been in a great spot, it doesn't sound like, over the last few games, and really had conversations with Cal, had conversations with Oscar before the game, after the Missouri loss, just kind of telling him to start playing and, you know, leave everything aside, just flip that switch. And I don't know what that switch was, but Jack was there with the conversation with Jacob, so I'm sure he can tell us a little bit more. But he had a season high 24 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, I believe, 10 for 15 from the field, was just really confident going to this. I think the first 7 minutes he had 9 points. Everything was pretty much to his left hand, kind of coming around. You know, the dribble drive offense was really working for him. So great confidence building game for Jacob Toppin, even if it was against a Louisville team that, I got to say, they're the worst team that Kentucky has played this year, and I really don't think it's that close.
Yeah, just before touching on Louisville's terribleness and just how they're the worst team in Power 5 college basketball, Jacob Toppin was unplayable here in recent stretches against Missouri. Cal said if there's another word for awful, he'd like to hear it, because that's what Jacob Toppin was. Look, he's a guy that I think it's been between the ears from the start physically. I think that's what has been so frustrating about him, Zach, is because he has every physical tool you could ever dream of for a high-level basketball player. He's 6'9", 6'10", 45-inch vertical, long wingspan, has the skill and, you know, tools to be a high-level potential, you know, lottery pick. That's why everybody fell in love with him this offseason. The Keon Brooks decision to leave him emerging as kind of the go-to guy at the 4, everybody kind of thought this would be his team. He could be the star that this team was desperately missing, and he just hasn't been that guy. And I think it's just been between the ears. His body language has been bad. His motor's been bad. And like Cal said, he has not been playable on the floor. And I don't know what it took. He said that he was in a very dark place, that he'll admit that he was at rock bottom. He said, I hit rock bottom and there wasn't even a bottom. Like it was just an endless abyss that he was in. It just really profound stuff from Jacob there after the game, just kind of expressing like, look, I know that I haven't been good enough. I don't know what it's been. I looked for help. I talked to therapists. I talked to psychiatrists. You know, he's been trying to get to the bottom of this from the very beginning, and to see him kind of break through again. The competition was terrible. Throw all of that aside. I don't care if he was doing it 5-on-0, because that's basically what it was. The fact that he was able to get that and build that confidence was exactly what this team needed, and I'm really proud of him for talking the way he did and just kind of just expressing that, yeah, I have not been the player that I need to be, and hopefully that this is a stepping stone to some greater sites here in the very near future.
Yeah, just going back to some of the stuff we heard in the post-game press conference, it really sounds like the mental part was something that the team was struggling to get over, and something has happened in the last few days where I don't know if they've completely gotten over it, but they've found, you know, at least a remedy to what's been going on. You know, it's not even just guys like Jacob. Like, obviously, CJ, before he got hurt, he's been struggling. Antonio Reeves has been struggling. He only played, 5 minutes tonight, maybe?
5 total, yeah.
5 minutes. He had a couple of buckets, but, you know, he got pulled real quick at the beginning of the game. Cal only went to 6.
Well, technically 16 minutes, which that does a very quiet 16 minutes, but still
5 in the first half.
Only 4 shot attempts, which is very not very uncharacteristic of him.
So there's been a lot of just mental stuff, it feels like, going on with this team as of late, and whatever has gone on over, like Cal and Oscar were both really went out of their way to kind of talk about that. Oscar was talking about how he told Jacob to stop using social media. He said he stopped using himself. He said whenever he wants to use social media now, he just opens up his Bible, which is like a perfect Oscar thing, you know. And I don't know if Kaysen said anything similar as well, but it just feels like all these guys are really just trying to deal with the gravity of playing at Kentucky, and kind of what Cal's been saying with, you know, don't put too much pressure on these guys. I don't think that's what fans were doing per se. I think a lot of the players were putting it on themselves, especially with Jacob being a NBA guy, you know, back in the Bahamas, and now he kind of slipped off those draft boards entirely. that messes with the kid, as obviously as he said. So even if you're beating a Louisville team that's bad, any sort of confidence building is going to be huge going into a really big game now against LSU on Tuesday.
And speaking of the just kind of mental health stuff and just people looking down, Kenny Payne and the two players up at the podium, L. Ellis being one of them, they look just dejected. They look just not all there, and you could tell that is a program that's in need of something like that too. Look, they're 2-12. It's the worst assembled roster I have seen with my own two eyes. Look, we've said it on this platform, on podcasts, writing and stuff. I genuinely can't believe that Kenny Payne, with as much basketball knowledge as he has and experience in the sport, being in the NBA, knowing what NBA talent looks like, to assemble a roster this bad with no high-level talent outside of L. Ellis, who is a shoot-first, kind of ball-dominant type of guy that doesn't, play winning basketball per se. Your best get this offseason was Brandon Huntley-Hatfield, which that's another story for another time, but just not a huge fan of his game and motor issues and things like that. Just really poorly constructed roster. So they were already 3-4 steps back to begin with this season, but that is a program that I just don't know. In the recruiting, they didn't get DJ Wagner, they didn't get Aaron Bradshaw. I don't know how you look at that program and think positive thoughts moving forward. I love KP. I love the quotes that he gave. Cal said afterward that if his son were going into college right now, that he would have him play for Kenny Payne. But goodness gracious, it's not looking good for Louisville right now. Yeah,
Kenny Payne did get a nice little ovation at the beginning, and then kind of towards the end when it was a blowout, Zan came in and he even got
shoot.
Every time Zan touched the ball with under 2 minutes left, Kentucky fans were telling him to shoot, which I thought was funny. I was hoping that Zan would be the one to ruin the cover, as he did, or he won the cover for Kentucky in a game last year off like a last-second shot or something like that. Kentucky actually did cover, I think. It was 22.5. They won by 23.
Depending on where you got it. They opened at 22.5 and it closed at 23.5.
Oh, so did it really?
It was 23-point victory. So depending on who got it when, that was
But going back to what you were saying about just their players being dejected, they were very down the whole time. Kenny said something about L. Ellis where he was like, I'd rather him have 15 assists and 10 points than go out there and score 30. I'm sure he didn't probably like to hear that, considering L. Ellis is the only guy that can go out there and score for that team. And he did actually, he dusted Xavier Wheeler probably 4 or 5 different times, I felt like, just in the half court. So, but elsewhere, you've got guys like Huntley-Hatfield and Sidney Curry who are just, they're not up to the level of caliber players that Kentucky has right now. And that's kind of just what it came down to tonight, or this afternoon, is Kentucky just had better players, and you had guys bounce back like Jacob, and that's really just what proved to be the difference.
I'll close out with Cason Wallace, another tremendous performance for him. I just love the way he's kind of establishing himself as Kentucky's star, no matter what the result of the game is, no matter what the competition is. Cason is kind of proving to be that guy. He's hitting big shots. He almost dunked on somebody's head, almost ended, I think it was 2 guys that ended their lives. It was just an amazing dunk attempt. He missed it, but
we need one of those. I feel like we haven't had one of those yet this year.
We got one that, again, we've been talking about Jacob Toppin needing to play above the rim.
Dunk,
Had a couple big putback dunks and finishes inside, so great effort on their end. Shout out Cason Wallace, shout out Jacob Toppin, shout out Oscar as well.
Shout out Cheesecake.
Shout out Cheesecake. Very feel-good performance for the Cats, desperately needed. We'll be back here at Rupp Arena Tuesday. LSU, the Fighting LSU Racers. Shout out Steven, who is a big Murray State fan. It's going to be a little bit of a homecoming of sorts for them. So big performance there. We will be back here Tuesday night.